Hey, welcome back to the Soul Pod. This is Stacy. This video is going to be for anyone who's ever woken up and thought to themselves, I got to change my friend group. Have you ever had this moment? Have you ever had this moment where you realize that, man, this group is not working out for me? I think we could do a little bit better here. When you understand that your friend group is not elevating you, but helping you make bad choices or lesser choices than you would like to make at least. This doesn't have to be something huge. It can be something fairly small. But when you suddenly realize that you're not being challenged or elevated by the associations that you have, that's a moment of opportunity for change. The late great motivational speaker Jim Rohn once said, "You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." So consider for yourself, if you will, who are those people you spend the most time with? Who are those people? Do they elevate you? Do they reduce you? Do they bring out the best in you? Do they bring out the worst in you? And which of those do you prefer? If you prefer to have someone bring out the least in you, you're probably an unusual person. Most of us, and certainly if you're listening to this channel, are looking for ways to improve and to grow and to expand. So today I want to talk about this thing I call the good person principle. The good person principle is it's pretty simple. Essentially, you do become the people you associate with. But the reality is that when we associate with people we look up to, when we associate with people who have a higher level of moral integrity, we aspire to be more like them. So when you hang out with good folks, they help elevate you. They help challenge you to become a better version of yourself. And it doesn't just have to be integrity. It can be anything. It can be anything that you want to be better at. If you hang out with a bunch of folks who are really great philosophers, your philosophy skills will increase. If you hang out with mathematicians, there's this osmosis thing that happens. Whoever you're with, there's great parts of those people's personalities or skills that will rub off on you in some way. I have a friend who's an electrician and a great mathematician. I'm neither, but through the association, I've become much more effective at all things electrical or mathematical, just because he's great at explaining things and patient. That's one example. But so this is a very broad spectrum of friendships that I'm talking about. It doesn't just have to be integrity. But I'm gonna focus more on integrity right now, because that way we can kind of dial it in and it'll be easier to talk about this topic. This is going to be a two-parter. The first one's going to show you how to pull the weeds out of that garden that you're living in. And the other one's going to tell you how to nurture the flowers, get those better people in your life that are challenging you, that you're spending more time with, rather than maybe the ones that are dragging you down. Now, we all have somebody in our life, whether it's a work association, a family member, whatever, that drags us down. Maybe they're a negative Nancy, somebody who you run into and they've got something, my life sucks and this is horrible, and just basically dark energy. They're not a bad person, they just aren't vibrating on the level that you want to be on. So we have to figure out how to weed the garden in a loving way that's not unkind, but is good and helpful for us. And sometimes we have to do this to be able to actually move forward to make those associations. So we're going to dive into how to go about doing that. So the first step when you've got someone and you need to start sort of weeding the garden to kind of get the weeds out to make more room for the flowers of friends. If you've got, say, a negative coworker who's always coming up and telling you, how crappy his life is, or what a miserable human being his wife is, or maybe I've had coworkers before that love to tell really inappropriate jokes, and to them that was just their normal. But I don't particularly care for some sorts of jokes. There's some jokes that I find to be dark and uncomfortable and unenjoyable, and these things have an effect on us. It's normal that things have an effect on us if we don't enjoy them and we feel that negativity, that darkness. So what do you do about this? Well, you've got what's the soft brush off, which is if someone comes up and says something about how horrible things are and how rough their life is or how terrible their wife is or something, the soft way to handle that, especially if they're not a close friend, is just, oh, that's rough, and then shift or pivot, right? Now, if they're a closer friend, it's a different thing, and so you might have to handle it a little differently. Perhaps you can handle it that way, but there's also the step up, and the step up is if it continues, you can actually start to set soft boundaries. Soft boundaries are things like, gosh, that's rough. I'm going to stop you there, though. I'm trying to shift and focus more on the positive lately. I understand you're going through a lot, but I don't want to associate, I don't want to relate to you on that level. I hope you understand. And if they don't get it, then you can set up more heart boundaries. Maybe you don't respond as quickly when they text. Maybe you start putting more distance between yourself and them. What you're doing here is you're pulling the weeds out of the garden to make space for the good stuff to grow. Now, I'm not saying you have to shut this person out completely, though in some cases that will happen. I've had instances in my life where people were so negative, relatives even, that there wasn't room in my garden for them any longer. Now, I didn't have to go and announce to the world that I'm kicking them out of the garden. I just simply made distance between myself and those people. And now it's not a thing. It's not an issue anymore. Yeah, you might have to run into them at some family thing. That's fine. But you can still find ways to make distance between you and them. The trick, though, is to cultivate that fertile soil where the flowers will grow. Are you doing that? Are you currently doing that? Do you want to do more of that?
So here's your 7-day challenge. Your 7-day challenge. This is where we're going to start getting that fertile soil ready to grow flowers in while pulling the weeds out, okay? Step one is we're going to identify where the dark energy is getting in, right? You want light, positive, good stuff. You want to be growing in a good direction, and you do that by surrounding yourself with people that inspire that growth. And you also do that by reducing the people who work against that. The people that work against that are the ones that bring in darker energy, okay? So for the next 7 days, maybe carry around a notepad or something, or just maybe you do it in the notes on your phone. Start noticing the things that affect your energy in a negative way. People that land more negatively with you, people that bring in sort of darker feelings versus light feelings. What we're doing here is we're starting to identify the thing that most of us ignore on a daily basis. We all have some people in our life who bring in negative and dark energy, or, less than great energy, let's say. But we're so used to it that we don't notice. It's just a normal part of our day. When you start to do this exercise and you start jotting these things down and actively paying attention to them, what you're doing is you're recognizing how these things have actually started to affect your happiness, your moods, who you are, and how they drag you down. In the next video, we'll talk about how to elevate yourself up to rise to the next level by surrounding yourself with better people, pulling the weeds, planting the flowers. So I'll see you in video number 2, where we'll talk about how to plant flowers. Thanks for being here. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, subscribe to the channel. What'll happen is you will actually get updates when the new videos drop, so you won't miss one accidentally. It's also good for the channel because more people are aware of it because there's people subscribing. Something about the algorithm. At any rate, I'll see you on video 2, where we'll talk about planting some flowers.